In Part 1, we learned that the white stork is a silent bird, one that lost its wetlands and was forced to move onto our rooftops, that it can kill its own chicks when there isn't enough food, and that it hunts with a precision that's hard to call mere instinct. But there's something we haven't told you yet. Every autumn, this bird disappears, and what happens next changes everything you thought you knew about it. Every autumn, the white stork disappears. One day, it's simply gone from the roof. It flies to Africa, 10,000 kilometers in one direction. And every spring, it comes back to that same roof, that same nest. But how it actually does this isn't as simple as it sounds. The stork doesn't fly over open water. Sea air doesn't create the rising thermal currents it needs to soar for hours without a single wing beat. So it looks for the narrowest crossings between one shore and another. The western population goes through the Strait of Gibraltar, the eastern one through the Bosphorus and on through the Middle East. Two routes, two streams, millions of birds funneling into these exact points every single year. But not every bird makes it through that funnel with equal ease. It's hardest of all for those flying it for the first time. When a young stork leaves the nest for the first time, according to a Polish study that tracked 121 chicks with GPS trackers over 11 years. It happens on day 67 after hatching, most often in late morning, once the air is warm enough for rising thermal currents. It doesn't know where it's going. Its parents left earlier. It flies alone in a mixed flock of other young birds, heading south purely on instinct, with no experience at all. Flocks of storks along the Nile sometimes number as many as 11,000 birds. The first journey takes nearly 50 days. This is the most dangerous period in a white stork's life. On the eastern route through Lebanon, mass illegal shooting kills tens of thousands of birds every year. In Africa, droughts in the Sahel are just as deadly. How productive the grasslands are in October and November accounts for up to 88% of young storks' yearly survival. A good rainy year means more birds make it. A dry one means young storks die by the thousands. A study tracking 54 young storks with GPS found that among the chicks that wintered in Africa, only 38% survived. Every single chick that stayed in Europe for the winter made it through the first year. Adult birds handle the winter far better than juveniles. Not because it's easier for them, but because they already know where to find food and how to avoid danger. The ones who survive don't come back right away. White storks usually start breeding at 3 or 4 years old, though some do it earlier, some later. Completing the spring journey and settling down to breed means fully growing up, not just remembering the way home. In the UK, there's a stork named GB6N. She hatched in 2021 at the Knepp estate. That same autumn, she flew south. In 2022, she was spotted in Kenitra, Morocco, feeding at a landfill. In 2023, she was seen in Spain. And only in 2024, 3 years after first leaving the nest, did she return to Knepp. And that same season, she successfully raised 3 chicks there. 3 springs in a row, she pushed a little farther north than the year before. Each time her body was ready, she flew a little closer to home. Here's what changed over the last few decades. Before the 1980s, not a single stork wintered in Spain or Portugal. Then landfills appeared, offering food all year round, and the first birds started staying behind. By the mid-2000s, Portugal alone had 14,000 wintering storks, 80% of them feeding at landfills. But that was only the beginning. A 20-year study combining population counts with GPS tracking of more than 200 birds found that between 1995 and 2020, the share of storks that stopped flying to Africa altogether rose from 18% to nearly 80%. In a single quarter century, most of the population stopped doing what this species had done for thousands of years. And it's not just about food. Scientists believe that birds raised without ever needing to fly south grow up differently. Migration turns out not to be a hardwired instinct, but a behavior that can disappear within 1 or 2 generations if conditions change fast enough. Right now, the EU is closing down landfills. Whether these birds will return to migrating or simply start starving, researchers don't yet know. We drained the wetlands. It moved on to our rooftops. We opened landfills. It stopped flying to Africa. We're closing the landfills. It's adapting all over again. And each time, the clock isn't measured in centuries anymore. It's measured in a single generation. But adapting to us isn't the only thing the stork calculates. It weighs the exact same kind of decisions inside its own world, too. A world where humans don't factor in at all. The stork isn't only sizing you up. It does the same thing with anyone who approaches its nest. Every spring, when storks return to their old sites, some nests are already taken. The original owner didn't make it back, or arrived too late, and another bird moved in instead. Clashes between a nest owner and a newcomer happen regularly, and it's far from just posturing and display. Sometimes these are real fights, brutal, bloody, occasionally dragging on for an entire day, and both birds don't always walk away from it. In the heat of the fight, a stork can even mistakenly attack its own mate, failing to recognize it in the chaos. And the colony isn't some anonymous crowd of birds. When a completely unfamiliar stork shows up among them, the nesting birds react immediately, watching warily, and if the stranger gets too close, escalating to open threat displays. Neighbors they see every single day never get that reaction. A stranger is read as a stranger almost instantly. There's something even odder than that. Sometimes a third bird settles in next to an already established pair, a second female, on the very same nest. She does everything the main pair does, carries nesting material, defends the territory, incubates the eggs. Scientists still argue about what's actually going on, whether the male is genuinely fertilizing both females, or whether the second bird is simply attaching herself nearby without offspring, in a status that doesn't have a precise name. So the next time you see a stork silently watching you from a rooftop, clearly making some kind of decision, know that it looks at any other stork that dares fly too close with that exact same gaze. You're not a special case. You're just one more thing it needs to size up. There's a 2023 study published in the journal Animals. Researchers gathered 287 observations of 59 different storks, aged 2 to 7, and recorded the same pattern every time. When a person approaches the nest, the bird makes a decision, and 3 things shape that decision. Age turned out to be the key factor. Younger birds fly off almost immediately. They still have their whole life ahead of them, and losing one clutch isn't that big a deal. Older birds, by contrast, hold their ground until the very last moment. They'll get fewer future chances at offspring, so this nest might as well be their last one. The stage of the breeding cycle changes behavior too. When the nest holds only eggs or very young chicks, the most vulnerable stage, the parents stay put longer than at any other point in the season. And there's a third, most unexpected factor, whether a mate is present. You'd assume that with 2 birds together, they'd feel safer and hold their ground more confidently. The opposite happens. If a mate is nearby, the stork leaves sooner. Scientists explain this as a hidden division of roles between the parents. If one is guaranteed to stay and defend the nest, the other has no reason to be the one who stays till the last second. Behind all of this isn't instinct. It's the ability to reassess the situation, fresh, every single time. And here's the thing worth understanding. While we thought we were studying the stork, it was studying us. We drained the wetlands. It moved onto our rooftops. We opened landfills. It stayed through the winter. We're closing the landfills. It's adapting all over again. A bird that can't make a single sound with its own voice turned out to be one of the most attentive observers of human behavior in the last several thousand years. It's back, just like every spring, standing on the same rooftop, looking down with the same gaze. On the surface, nothing has changed. But now you know what's happening inside that silence. The white stork has lived alongside humans for 1,000 years. It watched us drain wetlands, open landfills, and shut them down again, clear forests, and build cities where its old nesting grounds used to be. And every single time, it found a way to keep going. For centuries, people saw it as a symbol of good luck, new life, loyalty, and care. All of that is true. And at the same time, that very same bird is capable of killing its own chick if there isn't enough food to go around. Maybe that's exactly why people spent centuries mounting wagon wheels on their roofs, hoping it would choose their home. Not because it actually brings luck, but because something in them sensed it. This bird knows something we don't, and it's better to have it around than not.